Good evening. My name is Mike. Also call me Taz if you prefer. I'm with Gesture Politics, and we've decided to do a series on the Constitution. And it's going to consist of a series of short videos discussing what the Constitution says and does and dispelling some myths maybe. The reason we decided to do this is though everybody, I think, has pretty much a basic knowledge of what the Constitution may provide, but a lot of people really don't understand that maybe your rights aren't as expansive as you think they are, or they're more expansive than you believe they are. And there's a lot of nuts and bolts about how the government works that we just never think of. So talking to my partner, Dr. Sean, we decided to go ahead and do this. For some reason, people think I know a lot about the Constitution, so I'm the one that has to do this, and I'm very happy to do it. Before we get to the Constitution itself, I think it's important that we discuss how we got there. If you remember, we declared our independence on July 4th, 1776, and the Constitution was not ratified until 1788. So what did we do during those 12 periods from the time we declared our independence till the time that we ratified the Constitution? Well, going back to 1776, a guy named John Dickinson wrote the Articles of Confederation. And the reason he wrote that is at the time, the United States was being governed by the Second Continental Congress, which was sort of a de facto government, but not a legal one. Well, that's not correct. It was a legal one, but it wasn't affirmed by a ratification of the 13 colonies. Each colony had one person at the Continental Congress, and they were there to coordinate the response to Great Britain during the Revolutionary War. Yet, there was nothing legal or official document supporting their existence. So John Dickinson of Delaware wrote the Articles of Confederation, and those were adopted by the Continental Congress in 1777, but they weren't ratified until 1881. However, because they were out for ratification and the Continental Congress did unanimously consent to them, they were the de facto government at the time. It allowed the U.S. to coordinate the war, to try to raise money, which they were less than very successful about. And it also allowed them to enter into the treaty with France for military support in 1778, even though we hadn't ratified that. 1781, the Articles of Confederation were ratified, and it's known as the first Constitution. And I guess you could call it that, but really it didn't create a nation. It did call us the United States, but it didn't create a nation. It was more of a league of friendship among the 13 sovereign states. And the Articles gave up very specific and very limited powers to the federal government. They could maintain an army and a navy, coin money, make treaties, establish a post office, things like that. However, they couldn't tax people or tax the states. They had a very hard time enforcing what they could do because they just didn't have any method of doing it. They didn't have a court system. They didn't have a head executive. They just had 13 people showing up at the Continental Congress and voting on stuff. And as a result of that, they couldn't regulate Congress. They couldn't tax. And one of the worst things is they lived off printing money. And when they were inflation was just extraordinarily high. And it caused a lot of unrest. The other thing that was causing problems was even though they had the authority to enter into treaties, a lot of the states would just blow it off, and there was nothing that the federal government could do. So other nations were very hesitant about entering into trade agreements with the United States. So a few years into it, the country had extraordinarily high inflation. There was unrest going through it. All your major players, Washington, Madison, Hamilton, all recognized that the nation was hobbling along. Washington described it as a nation on crutches stumbling along. So they got together, some of them, Madison, Hamilton, Dickinson again, got together and they called their states did, convention to be held in Annapolis, and that was the Annapolis Convention of 1786. But only 5 states showed up. Now, 4 other ones did appoint delegates, but they never arrived, and the other 4 just declined to appoint anyone. So the 5 states that showed up obviously recognized there were major problems with the Articles of Confederation, and they decided to call for a second convention in Philadelphia in 1787. And the purported reason was to amend and fix the Articles of Confederation. Now, the Annapolis Convention was called to address commerce problems and the trade problems. But at Annapolis, those 5 states understood or recognized that it was going to take, the problems went more than just trade and commerce. So when they sent out the letter for the second convention, Philadelphia, they said to amend the Articles of Confederation to make them work. So it was going to be like a broad-based thing. What we'll do it next time is we'll talk about the start of the convention. But right now, I just want to leave with this, is that even though the Constitutional Convention of 1787 in Philadelphia was purportedly to amend the Articles of Confederation to make them work, Madison submitted what was called the Virginia Plan, and is the basis of our Constitution. So the convention, the Constitutional Convention, became, in effect, the first runaway convention. And that's important because right now there's a lot of people calling for a states convention under Article 5 of the Constitution. And some people say, well, you can have it. They're afraid to go that route because they're afraid of a runaway convention. And the people calling for it say that's impossible to have a runaway convention. However, the Constitution is a result of a runaway convention. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and we'll go ahead and start the next one with the Constitutional Convention of 1787. I hope you enjoyed this short 8-minute burst. If not, I'm sorry. Have a great day. Bye.